Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are going to be getting started here in about 5 minutes. I just wanted to pop in, say hi, let you guys know that if you have any tech issues, 99% of the time refreshing is going to fix it. If it doesn't, you're going to get a replay later today in your inbox, so don't stress about that. Drop in the chat where you're watching from. We are going to be doing some giveaways today, so be sure that you're in that chat. And if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, pop over to streamlineartevents.com/5tips. We're going to put that up on the screen here in a second. Jump over there so that you are included in that chat because that is where we pull winners from for our giveaways. So we've got about 5 more minutes. We're going to let everybody get caught up, get in here, make sure everything's working okay, and we'll see you guys back in a few. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad you're joining us today. A little housekeeping note for you before we get started. If you experience any technical issues, please refresh your browsers. That is going to fix issues 99% of the time. And if for some reason it's still not working, don't worry because you're going to get a replay later today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrie Stober. I have been working with Streamline Publishing for 13 years. I absolutely love what I do. I like to say that I am a project manager by trade, a journalist by trade, project manager by happenstance, and an artist by choice. And I just love getting to work for Streamline, it's just so wonderful to be able to work for a company that loves art, that loves artists, and it's just a joy to work here. So before we get started with our guest today, I have a little bit of information I want to share with you about Streamline Publishing in case you're new to us. And I will do my best to keep it brief. So this company was started by Eric Rhodes. He is our CEO, our founder, and everything. And he is an artist himself. And one thing that he has found is that a mixture of inspiration, instruction, and experiences make for a well-rounded artistic journey. And that's what we base everything we do on here. We publish 2 magazines, one for the art collector and the other for, you guessed it, outdoor painters, which is also the name of our website. We have numerous newsletters, depending on what you're into. There's Inside Art for our broader audience, and then we have dedicated ones like American Watercolor, Pastel Today, and Plein Air Today for you plein air painters. When it comes to instruction, we have a huge library of art instructional courses from some amazing artists. And we also have free art instruction through Eric's weekday YouTube show called Art School Live. It's a great resource, so I recommend you check that out and check out PaintTube TV for those in-depth, professionally produced art instruction courses. Next up, we have our virtual events, which I'm going to talk more about later. We've are adding a bunch of those for next year, which I'm super excited about. And we also have, rounding out our experiences, are the in-person conferences and artist retreats. These happen around the country and also internationally. Eric is currently at Fall Color Week, and next up, he is headed to Switzerland to go plein air painting with a group of you guys. So lots of things that we do here. And if you want to discover more and go in depth with the things that we do, check out streamlinepublishing.com/art. That is going to give you information on absolutely everything that we do here at Streamline. There's so much more. We're just scratching the tip of it today. Today's show is sponsored by Plein Air Live, our upcoming virtual event that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. One last thing I want to discuss before we get to the meat of today's event is giveaways, because I love doing giveaways. So I want you to type in the chat plein air, and we are going to pick a couple of winners for our first giveaways. The first one, and if I call your name, type I'm here in the chat, and we have this email on our screen, winner@streamlinepublishing.com. Send us an email so that we can get you access to what you need. So the first video we have is Brienne Brown's newest video with us. This is a plein air painting video. It's called Seascapes in Oil and Watercolor. And I highly recommend this. And that is going to go to Sally Ann Wilson. Sally Ann Wilson, congratulations. You are getting Brienne's video. And next we have Brian Blood. This is his newest video with us. And this is Plein Air by the Sea with Brian Blood. And this goes to Verona Horn. Verona Horn, congratulations. Those names are flying by really fast. Congratulations to Verona. Both of these videos were filmed outside. So if you're interested in plein air, I encourage you to check those out. We'll drop links to those in the chat, and lots of plein air and landscape videos on PaintTube TV. So be sure to check those out as well. We have more giveaways coming up today, so be sure to stick around in the chat. If you are watching on Facebook and YouTube, like I said, head over to streamlineartevents.com/5tips and join the chat there. That way you are eligible for our giveaways for when we pick them. And we have more later today, so be sure to stick around for those. So now for why we are here. What are we here today to do? We are going to be chatting with the lovely Cindy Barron about transforming your plein air paintings into stunning studio paintings. It can be a challenge. I know, especially for me as a new plein air painter, it can be a challenge to scale up your plein air paintings and your studies into something bigger and better once you get into the studio. So I'm really excited to see what Cindy's going to be sharing with us today. And we are going to have a Q&A after the event towards the end. So be sure to drop any questions you have for Cindy in the chat, and we'll make sure to get those answered for you. And in case you are not familiar with Cindy, she is a nationally known watercolor and oil painter. She has lived all over the country, She's painted grand landscapes from coast to coast. And her passion in the arts actually began with pastels, which I did not know, and then led to watercolors and oils. She is a plein air enthusiast, and her extensive travels have given her an abundance of information and knowledge that she generously shares with her students. She has become a highly sought after instructor, teaching around the country and internationally. And let us welcome the one and the only Cindy Barron. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Good. How is everyone?
Oh, we're doing wonderful. And you are joining us from Rhode Island?
I am in Rhode Island. I know I'm all over the place, but I'm in Rhode Island right now.
Currently in Rhode Island.
That's
Wonderful.
home.
That is wonderful. Cindy, I did not know that you actually started with pastels. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started with art and then how you've kind of migrated in your journey to where you are now?
Well, I started with pastels mostly with portraits. I love doing the portrait, and I had some wonderful neighbors that were great models for me. So I borrowed $100 from my grandmother to buy a large pastel set. Now, this is many years ago because you can't get the $100 worth of pastels right now.
No, you cannot.
So that was many, many years ago. And all she said was put something on her wall. So that's how I started with pastels, and it was mostly because of portraiture, and that's what I did for many years was portraiture before the landscape really grabbed me, and I ran off with it. But I still like to go back to them. I still have all my charcoals and my pastels, and I still work with them.
And have you always been an artist, or did you, I find that a lot of people now, had a career before this and then transitioned into art. Have you always been full-time artist?
I've had a lot of careers.
Oh,
No,
interesting.
no, art is one of them. Raising a family, I raised some professional athletes, so that was a major career. And then, but I was an artist. My second grade teacher said, Mrs. Jackson, told my mother, she's going to be an artist. And my mother looked at her like, really? You kidding me? But So actually, she was the first one that noticed it. So I've always been an artist. I went professional in my early 20s, and I started with outdoor fine art shows outdoors, and I love those. And that's how I really learned the business. And I met a lot of friends in the art world. So it's been, I won't tell you how many years, but I've been at this for a while.
So you know your way around things.
I do. It was on the job training, to be honest. When you're young, it is on the job training. You do whatever and you do what moves you. And I love the portraits. And then I fell in love with watercolors. And then I got a little bored. So I picked up the oils about 20 years ago. And what I found out with the oils rejuvenated my watercolors, and the watercolors are infused in my oils. So I highly recommend everybody just get it all out and play with it. You gotta do what moves you, and every one of those mediums has helped the other medium out.
I hear that a lot, especially because I primarily am pastel. So I hear that a lot from pastel artists because with pastel, you don't mix your mediums. So when you're playing with other mediums or using those regularly, you're learning different things. You're learning, like right now with gouache and acrylic, I'm learning color mixing, color theory, like all about color that I didn't understand before with just jumping in with pastels. So I agree.
Right.
It definitely helps you as an artist to grow more when you're, dabbling a little bit of everything.
It does, and I wish I had some pastels to show you, but we had a major flood, and I lost all my archives and my yeah, I lost it all, and that was probably oh my gosh, 10, 15 years ago when the flood came through Rhode Island. So I have nothing. I don't even have my slides to show my prior work. So all
Oh,
of that
that's so
went
sad.
with the flood.
Everybody's got to start storing stuff in the attic. I hear that there's so many people who've lost stuff to floods. I'm like, let's get those attics going. We got to build those.
I know. It's quite sad when you see things bobbing and you're like, oh my gosh. So there is, you know what? Guess what? It happened. So you move on.
So you started out portraits, you transitioned to landscape when you liked that. So with the fine art, what was your transition like, did you start out in the studio with landscape, or did you just like immediately jump into plein air? What was that like for you?
Both. I jumped into both. Whenever I could be outdoors, I could. Now I live in the Northeast, so there's certain months you really don't go outdoors, you stay inside.
Hmm.
And it was both. I needed to know both. I needed to know the experience. There's nothing like the experience of the outdoors that teach you color, teach you value, it teach you composition, it teach you how to be simple. It shows you how to simplify your painting, because that's a big scene when you're outside. And then when you're inside, you can see the mistakes you made from your outdoor. So, they both, for me, I'm plein air and a studio painter. I like both. I rely on both for all my knowledge. And that part is power. Once you learn all of this and you're outdoors and you bring it indoors, that's power to create anything that you can create. Painting outside, like I said, is scary. Oh my gosh. I mean, there is so much to digest. And then you got to figure out what's going to tell the story and still be the scene, and simplify, eliminate, move a tree, bring take out a rock, it's all of that. And that's all about years and years of brush miles, and I have years of brush miles, working outdoors and in the studio. So it's not easy for, it's not an easy job. It might look easy, it's fun, but it's not an easy job.
And that's something I'm learning recently, what you said about like taking things out or moving a tree. My brain is so mechanical. What I see is what I want to paint. And I've
Mhm.
had such a hard time tuning into that artistic license that we have to say, okay, I like this, but I don't like that one piece right there. I'm going to take it out. Or I think it would look better if it was actually over here. And so I've just recently started playing with that. And it's a challenge because too, not having enough experience painting outside yet, you have to know how the light moves. You have to know if you move this object from here to here, how is the light going to change on that object? And that's not something I know yet because like you said, brush miles, you have to have those brush miles in order to really understand how things move if you shift them.
Yes, and everybody knows this phase. You chase the light when you're painting outdoors, and that is so, so true. I just taught a workshop up at Rockport Art Association. I had an amazing group of students, and a couple of them was the first time that they painted outdoors. So it was fun to do little demos with them and show them, how you got to move something and maybe take a scene from here and push it over a little bit, and the color and the light. The light is it of course, every way the light went, everybody was, ooh, I like, but you can't go chasing that. So you got to stay
Right.
true to what you saw and what moved you there to start painting. It is so easy to change your painting halfway through, and by the time you're done with the painting, it needs a psychologist because it doesn't even know what it's going to be. So it's there are rules to
Oh,
playing your painting that you have to stay with.
someone invited me to go last Friday, and it's the first time I've been in probably a year. And we were looking at the mountains. It had just snowed up there. And when we started, everything was, pretty much white. There was a couple of shadows. And an hour and a half late, it was only an hour and a half later, you look at it and it's completely gray. The light had gone and it moves so, so fast.
It
So
does.
so let's get into what we're going to talk about today, which is, the tips to transform your paintings from plein air to studio. What's your approach to this? How do you just walk us through what you, Cindy Barron, the wonderful, lovely Cindy Barron, do when you start plein air and go to the studio?
Oh, you're making me blush. It's a lot of things. First of all, when I'm captured by a scene that I want to paint, um, I am so excited to get it on the canvas right that minute.
Hmm.
And I also know that this would make a great studio painting. So every place I paint, it's in the back of my mind, oh, I'm going bigger at this. I'm doing this with this. I'm going to change the composition. So every time I paint outdoors, I realize each one of those paintings can become a larger studio piece by maybe a few compositional changes, a few shape changes, a few brushstroke changes. There's a lot of things in there that can make it a very good studio painting. So that's the one thing, when I'm outdoors and I find something that moves me, I automatically know this is going bigger in the studio. And my floor is full of little studies. And my brain is full, it has a traffic jam in it of all the things I want to take from those experiences into the studio. So, and you need those experiences because when you're in the studio, you don't have that fresh light, you don't have that landscape right in front of you. So you have to do a lot of studying in the field. You have to notice the shadows, you got to notice the values, you got to notice the colors, you got to notice the light change. And you got to take a lot of, I take a lot of reference photos, when I'm painting outdoors also, because I know some of those I can use in another studio piece, just by the knowledge of being outside.
Right.
So, that's the one thing everyone has to stay focused on when you're out there. Yeah, yes, you're painting, but you got to study. I mean, it's a constant. Wow, look at the shadow underneath that tree. Oh, wow, look at that house. That there's a beautiful white house, but look at all on the shade side, all the colors that are going into the shade. These are things when you become mature in your art and what you want to say. These are things you keep in mind when you are in your studio. You just remember all these things that you have seen outside.
That's
So,
really great advice. I realize I've been doing the opposite everywhere I go because again, I'm still like plein air painting scares me so much. I like to have so much control over things that and there's so much that you can't
oh, you
control.
don't have any control when you're outside.
None at all. But I found that I take reference photos like nobody's business. Like I see something and I'm like, that is pretty and it would make a great painting. I'm constantly snapping photos. But then
And
when I
that's
go,
that's good.
it's good. But when you go back to paint it without the experience of being there and studying the scene, photos lie and it looks nothing like what I remember.
Yes,
So
photos.
studying the scene,
Yeah,
that's really good.
photos do not tell the story the eyes see when you're outside. Photos, leave a lot of what I just said, the values, the colors, it leaves a lot of that out. So that's why you have to commit to memory some of the stuff you see outside. And and the photos that you take, so I have my sketchbook, I have my photos, and I have my plein air paintings. To be honest, all of those come together to produce a studio painting. So I just don't rely on my plein air piece. I also rely on what moved me when I was, when I stopped to paint the area. Was it the atmosphere that moved me? Maybe that's going to be the topic of my studio piece is that atmosphere. And everybody knows I love to paint atmosphere, but I spend a lot of time outside studying it so I can do it inside because the photos will not capture
Right.
it unless you're a phenomenal photographer that knows how to do all of that. I don't. I'm like clicking
Just
and
clicking and
painting
going,
and
clicking and going.
clicking and painting. Yeah, so I that's not me. That would be another life that I'll put that in my resume. But no, I use all those references, my sketchbook, which redesigns a plein air painting, and I've got that up on my. I will show that to everybody too.
How do you
So,
mean redesigns of plein air painting?
well, in this particular case, I made the trees grow. I put a little miracle grow on them. So I made the trees grow for the larger piece in the back. So when I do my sketches, I make sure I make notes of that. You'll see little circles, and these little circles are where my eye is going to go and travel through the whole painting. So this is just charcoal on here and an eraser. So it's I don't spend too much time on these sketches, but it's something that I know I'm going to rearrange this one to get to this one. And then I have my photo references. And now I'm going to give you the secret, a big, 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 big secret. Once you get so far in your paintings, put all your references away. You paint the large painting. Once you got your composition set and you made your color notes, I most of the time put all my references away, and that will help you go into your brain about the atmosphere, about how you're going to change this composition to make it even better. So that's one big secret I think everybody should adhere to. After you get so far in your painting, 50% through your painting, get rid of all your references and go by what's really going to move you and what's really going to work for the studio painting.
So with your sketchbook, like you have right there, did you sketch the scene as you saw it or as you envisioned it later?
This one was done later, but I do in the field do a quick sketch sometimes, especially if it's a massive scene and I don't know how to put it on a canvas. Most of my planer pieces when I make studies are little 6x8s and 8x10s and 10x12s. Rarely do I go to 11x14 only because I know I'm only going to spend a couple hours on it. And I have there's a name some of the artists have tagged on to me. It's called little putts because I tend to putz in my paintings. So that's why I only like to take a couple hours to work on those to get what I really need to see and keep as a reference for my studio painting later. So I do it all. It depends on the scene, on if the sketchbook comes out too, or if I just go right to the painting. When I paint that small, that's actually my little sketchbook too.
Right.
When I do these small little paintings, it's actually my little sketchbook.
Do you, when you do those paintings, do you ever go, wow, that's a really great painting, and just decide you're going to frame that one? Or are they just references?
I got a whole pile of them. No. Yeah, no, I have a whole pile. My kids are going, Ma, you can't sell everything because you need to leave us something. So I have a whole pile of paintings, and I'm starting. I have 6 grandkids, so they're each getting for Christmas. They each are starting their collection. So some of these will
Oh, that's
go.
wonderful.
So when they grow up, they're going to have Gigi's paintings. But no, I have a whole pile. I won't show you my studio. It is a disaster right now because I've been gone so much and I just do everything on the floor. But I had a 5-week plein air trip last April into May into Reno for the convention. So
Hmm.
I taught a workshop in Scottsdale, and then I went to Sedona. Then I spent 3 days in the Grand Canyon, 3, 4 days in the Grand Canyon that I loved. And I had every weather extreme you can imagine. I had snow, sleet, hail, lightning where I was running, and beautiful days. And then I did the Vermilion Cliffs. And thanks to Mitch Baird for giving me a clue on where to go. That's a stunning place to paint. I'll go back there. And then headed up the eastern side of the Sierras into Reno and stopped and painted for about 5 days up and down the eastern Sierras. And this piece behind me that I'm going to show you guys is from outside of Bishop, California. And there is a wonderful, you can drive clear up to almost 10,000 feet and paint. And once again, got there. There was snow, sleet, rain, hail, you name it, and good days. We froze, but it was fun. It was fun. But you know what? That trip did, as exhausting as that trip was, I did it because I needed to grow also as an artist. So that was my little solo trip to grow as an artist. And I liked it. Yeah, I was in and out of hotels and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but I did a lot of studying, a lot of little plein air pieces, mostly 6x8s, just so I could get the reference in, and then off to the Sierra. So I did a lot of mountain ranges, but I tell you what, it was good for my brain. I needed to do that. I needed to get out of the studio for a while. And I highly recommend it to anybody. Just take your time and go paint and study. Just take a few weeks if you can and just go paint and study.
I think that's great, especially as you, because you are such a well-known artist. Like you are, I feel like you're very established, like you master artist, but you still take the time to say, I needed to grow.
Oh,
I love that.
absolutely.
It's just so great. It shows
Absolutely.
that like you never reach a point where you're like, okay, I've reached it. I've done it all. Like we're good. It's
I
like you
hope I
always
never
go.
do. I hope I never do. I hope you guys, none of you ever do because this is a special gift and a passion of mine. And it's I never want to stop growing because once you stop growing, then your art stops growing. I want my art to keep growing. I got a million places I got to paint yet. So I've got to stay healthy and go paint those places.
That is awesome. I love that. So what's next? So we've talked about referencing or putting away your photo reference after you're 50% done, making
Yes.
sure you're studying a scene. What's next for Cindy?
Okay. Can we go behind me and so I can
Yeah.
explain what I'm doing?
Yep. This show is yours. You're in control.
So anyway, I talked to you about my little sketchbook, and I make those those are where I need to make my mental notes on how I'm going to change the scene. This is a little 8 by 10, which was outside Bishop, California. And what an amazing place to paint. I've done this a couple times now in the area. It's a cute little town, and it's accessible to go paint some of these areas. I've got some other ones that are going to go large that I'm super excited about. I happened to be there when they had record-breaking winds come through the area, and you could barely get out of the car. So that was a no painting day, but that was a day you sat in the car and studied. That was scary up at 10,000 feet. That was really weird. But this was a drive up there, and there's beautiful mountain ranges there. And there was still, because it was spring, there was still a lot of snow in the mountains, which made it phenomenal because then you had the spring greens that were coming
Mhm.
up. So, this one doesn't have the greens that I captured because they sort of went gray after I left, but it was a cold day. Got out and, painted behind the car with the mittens on, and it was cold. Believe it or not, for May, it was still very cold. But there was a wonder, this was done quickly, and there was storm clouds that came over the mountains and then receded, and you were constantly with the camera like this clicking, and then you're painting, oh, I like that, and next thing you know, the mountains disappear and you went, oh, I like that too. And so it was a constant, the camera was in one hand, the paintbrush was in another hand, because every time that atmosphere changed, it was an ooh ah moment. And I
Mhm.
wanted to capture it and remember it. Now I can go back and look at those photos and go, wow, this is great, but it left out the color and what I felt. So that's when you got to commit to memory what you saw and what you felt that day when you were up there. And that's things I like to do. And sometimes it takes a little time, but you just talk to yourself and say, let me acknowledge, let me learn the colors of those mountains, let me learn how the shadows are changing, let me learn about the grass color. Now I did not capture it up there, which I was disappointed when I unboxed everything and came home and said, wow, I really did not capture the green up there that I
Mhm.
remember seeing. So that's when I fast forward to this larger piece. It's a 24 by 30. And so I am I'm capturing the greens as I remembered it. Even my photos didn't capture the greens. Only the eye did. And there was little wildflowers that were poking up along the way too, because it was springtime, even though it was 35 degrees outside,
Right.
it was springtime. And then I put a little miracle-gro on my trees. And but guess what? I can do that. You're allowed to do that. And there are trees there. I just moved them. They were clear on this side. And then I just moved them more and made a nice little rhythm with it, which is that also goes with your mature brush miles. I have
Mhm.
a lot of miles, and I've learned, I study all the time. I love going to museums. I love visiting other artists. I love talking about art. And so those are things you got to pick up from everybody around you.
Right.
So I did, I'm still growing and I'm still learning from a lot of artists out there. Even the class I taught last week in Rockport, from the students, and a couple of them were very new to painting, I learned from them. I just look at, we all learn from each other. So always keep your mind, studying and learning. That's the best thing I can say. And so I did not include this, the small one has the clouds in it. And in the beginning, I put the clouds in it and I went, it's not working. It doesn't work the way it worked in the smaller piece. So
Mhm.
what I want to talk to you about also is when you go from a smaller piece to a larger piece, you got to think, I got these both in the same category, composition and shapes. So, even though I like my composition here, I didn't capture a few of the shapes the way I wanted to, because I was cold, my hands were frozen and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't capture what I wanted to see. So that's what in the studio piece I am capturing what I wanted to see. Like sometimes the small paintings, the shapes will not work the same when you go larger, because small is sort of simple and to the point and fresh, where larger ones is like, wow, I can now really explore with what I saw and create,
Right.
more detail and all of that. So to go as simple as this one is to a large one doesn't work for me. It can work. I don't want to poo-poo on anybody's thought process or other artists, because it can work. But for me, I like to add that detail. So small is simple, large is you can change and make stronger. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. Now this still has a lot of work to do in it. It's nowhere near as done. But I decided to take out the clouds, and the mountain shapes, my shapes are staying true to what I saw. But now I like this. So it doesn't mean in the end I might not put a little cloud or something in there. It just means I'm going to tell the story I want to tell from that day I was there, because I
Right.
had everything from clear skies to a storm come through to clear skies to the mountains disappearing. So, everything, why, within 2 hours, there was a lot of change in this scene. So that's one noticeable thing. I have a little path here. I'm putting in something here, but it's not going to be as pronounced as the little one, because I want to keep, I'm going to probably put in some brighter colors in here, because I really want this to pop. So that's one of them. Atmosphere, this is where you can shine. And if you know my paintings, I love to paint atmosphere.
Yes.
I love to go by the coast when it's foggy, or when a storm's coming in, or when you have that sea haze that comes through. I love studying that, and I love the way the sun hits the water to the land. I mean, it can create so much atmosphere, and the same thing happens in mountain pieces. Especially in the morning. This was in the morning, so same thing happens in the mountains. They get this little hazy look, and those are things that I get excited about. Those are
Yeah.
the things I study, and because I can't be there, all the time to do that painting, I got to take it in the studio, and that's when I got to use all my brush miles and all my mature knowledge that I have learned from plein air painting. So this one's going to be about the atmosphere with the spring greens. It's going to be about the spring with yet still the snow in the mountains, and that is what's exciting. I know you said Eric's going to Switzerland. Um,
Yes.
so they're not, that I would love, Switzerland be wonderful also in the springtime, because you have all that fresh snow in the mountains and you got the spring greens
Exactly.
going. And right now it's going to be phenomenal. I wish I was on that trip, but
Me too.
I'm not. Another I'm going to break this down too. So this was composition and shapes. That's one trick from going small to large. The next one is your brush strokes. Now I can be known as Miss Little Putz, but as I get to the larger paintings, I still get a little putsy with it, but it's with a bigger brush and it's with
Mhm.
palette knives. And it's there's a lot of different, my brush strokes are bigger. Where here I've got some little brush strokes. So I've changed my brush strokes up. They're going to change even more as I get more into the detail. And then I'm going to lightly haze some of these mountains out a little bit. So the brush strokes are key from going small to large. All right. Here's another one, especially if you're a landscape painter. Middle ground. Middle ground is this area in here. And I love painting the middle ground. And the reason why, I like the viewer to be able to walk through my paintings. And so that middle ground is almost as important. It might be the most important thing in a landscape painting, because that's what's going to give the viewer to go from the big, the foreground into the middle ground. And if you do the middle ground right, you're going to walk through the mountains. So the middle ground is key for the viewer. It's a little mystery, like, wow, what's behind there? And some of this becomes a little negative shaping, as I'm in there. But I'm creating, this is going to be about that middle ground and the way the light hit that middle ground and then bounced up and around through the whole painting. So middle ground for a landscape painter is important.
So when you're doing, so you got foreground, middle ground, background, do you give the same attention to like detail in all three of those throughout the painting, or is one a little more out of focus? Because I know for me, like I try to give the most focus to the foreground, even if the background is the focal piece. So I haven't yet like figured out how to merge those three together to make a really really deep painting.
Brushstrokes. And so the yes, the foreground, the middle ground, and the background all get the same amount of attention. And it gets it at different points in the painting. With the sky, I'll still go into the sky and it will get the brushstrokes will change. Instead of going haphazard, then the
Mhm.
brushstrokes start going up and down. I'll put the same thing with the mountain, and then my brush strokes will change a little bit, and that creates a lot of texture. And then the same with the middle ground. Now I really want the middle ground to pop, so that won't pop until I maybe put in some of the other suggested notes in this painting, color and brush strokes, and then I'll be able to pop this a little bit more. I may have to change the color here or the value, but to get this to really pop. And then once, I go back into the mountain and haze it out, then it will pop. So I'm doing a lot of color notes right now, even though the painting is, there's a lot of paint on here. I'm still almost in the process of color notes because I'm seeing how this works with that, how the middle ground works with the foreground, how the trees, how the foreground is going to enhance everything back here. The foreground's going to get a lot of attention because that's what brings you forward. I can create distance and I'll send this back later, but the foreground is going to get a lot of attention. But it's the middle ground that's going to go, wow, there's a middle ground there. Or there's, wow, I can walk, I feel like I can walk through and up through the mountains. So each one gets the same amount of attention, but the brush strokes will change and the thickness up front will be more enhanced, where this might get fuzzed out, the background might get fuzzed out a little bit more. So that's why I say the middle ground is very important, because it's gonna make the foreground stand out and it's gonna make the background stand out if that middle ground works for you. And that includes value and brush strokes and harmony.
Wow, that's so great.
It's a little confusing. Even I
It,
get confused. I
it
sit here
is.
and I go, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" But
No, it's
even I
really,
get a
yeah,
little confused because, and as us as artists, there's somebody in our head talking to us the whole time we're painting. And
yes.
and you just sit there, it's like, please shut up, just let me do it myself and see what happens. But you know what? But you need that extra voice up there. It's not really a voice, it's just the you need that in there to help you talk your way through the painting.
Yeah.
You need the small piece, and you need your sketches, and you need your photo references. But everything at this point, I don't use anything else. I just go right to the painting to uh finish it up. So the other thing is color. When you're staying fresh with your color, the color in the, when you're playing or painting is just so fun. I'll be honest, I didn't capture it the way I wanted to when I was there, because it was just, I was fighting the elements and the storms coming in and the cold. And so when I unpacked these things, I went, wow, I didn't capture what I remember. So, but color is normally in your little pieces. I can bring up another piece if I duck below and I'll show you. Um, uh, Most of the time I can capture it. I didn't with this one. So that's why I'm doing it bigger and capturing it with this one. So color, yeah, it's supposed to be vibrant when you're playing or painting, because you're right there in the elements and all of that. And I'll bring up another one to show you that I'm happy with. But I don't look at this as not being fresh. I look at it as my mature knowledge and how I can make it fresh on a larger painting. So I'm going on all the knowledge I've done and collected and all of that. And I have some old pieces. I've got a bin in the garage of all my oil paint paintings, the little studies. And every now and then I go through them. I'm like, wow, what happened to me now? Because I captured it then, I didn't capture it now. So, but that happens to all of us. But I love going through those bins and seeing what I did, because I'm my hardest critic. I'm my, I can tear one of my own paintings apart quicker than anybody else can. But
100%.
it's kind of good to go back and look at that because I was on the right track then, but every now and then, things change and
Right.
whatever. But this one, um, I'm capturing what I wanted this one to be in the larger one.
Do you
And
ever
so
invent color? Like there wasn't a color there, but you're like, hey, I want this to look like I want to put a meadow in here now that's got purple flowers or something. Do you ever invent color where it's not?
absolutely. Guess what? You're allowed to do that. There's no law
So
you
hard.
can't do that. It's your canvas, it's your painting, it's your paper. There you can do whatever you want. This still says the scene. And yes, there are some little teeny flowers, but I may put Miracle-Gro on them and just scatter them a little bit more. But guess what? You get to do that. There's no law saying you can't do it. It is your artist's interpretation of what you saw that day. And so that's what I'm doing on this one. And I'll tell all my viewers eventually I'll post this either on Facebook or Instagram, and you'll see if you can remember what it is. You'll see how I'm going to change this for later, as a finished piece. And I'm looking forward to it. I have another one that I'm going to block in tonight probably, but um like I said, all my travels have given me a library of stuff. All my meeting of artists, all my museum tours, all of that has given me a knowledge of stuff. Now look at the old masters. I'm going to go to Albert Bierstadt, which I love, I love, I love. And in some of those big paintings, you sit there and be like, I don't know if that waterfall is really there, but guess what? He's allowed to do it. I mean, we are all allowed to do all of that. So
Yeah.
just remember, knowledge is power, just put in as much as you can. And you're allowed to do anything you want to this scene. You're allowed, not you, I am. I'm allowed to do anything I want in this scene from what I want to say, get from my head through this brush onto the canvas. You're allowed to do that. You are the master of your own work.
I absolutely love that. It's so cool. This has been so enlightening. What else? Do you have any more for us? We've already had some bonus tips here, so this is great.
Well, yeah. So I talked about composition and shapes. So that's one thing from the plainer piece to the larger piece. That's important. Brush strokes is another thing because what works in this one won't work in this one. So that's the other thing. Atmosphere, keep in mind the atmosphere. What might not work in this, or what happened in this one might not work in this one. So I keep in mind, how can I change that? This is the exact mountain range, and the trees came from over there. I just pushed them over here a little bit more. And so you got to keep in mind, the atmosphere, what works in one doesn't work in the other. I had these clouds in this, and I'm sitting there like, okay, this is one thing to keep in mind. Had I put all that storm in there and I know what I want to put in the foreground, I'm going to have a very hyperactive painting.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore I had to simplify. Now there's more in this one, but in the large one, I'm simplifying in the sky area so I can say what I want to say in the foreground. So you have to keep that in mind. I don't have the flowers in the little one that I worked on because by then I was too cold. And
Yeah.
I just put it in my pizza box and jumped in the back of the car and headed out. So I didn't put those in here. I might go into this and see how it's going to look and then put them in this one. But I get to do that. It's my painting, and there's no law saying I can't. So the atmosphere, what worked in one might not work in the other one. And I'm really liking the way this is coming out. But I had to take the clouds out. And then
Yeah.
I had to sit there and I was a little disgusted with myself, thinking, okay. So then I had to refocus and decided last night I wiped them out and just put the paint back on them. And I'm centered again. I'm liking what's happening, and therefore I can work up front with what I want to what I want to say. And there was a lot of little wildflowers, and they were teeny, but mine are going to get a little bit bigger. So atmosphere, middle ground. As a landscape painter, middle ground can be, how do I want to say? Um, it's a bonus. It's if you can learn to paint that middle ground, the harmony and the shapes in a landscape painting, that's what helps create distance. That's what helps bring a painting forward. It works, and that's this part here. This is helping me to create distance, and it's helping me to come forward.
Hmm.
So this is sort of the star of the painting. Even though you see all these dark shapes and all of that, this in the end is going to be the star of the painting with the atmosphere, because this is going to get your eye to, or make your eye, that was bad English, but anyway, have your eye move through the painting the
Right.
way you want it to move through. I want you to be able to hike through my paintings. That's why I like doing middle ground, working on middle grounds. And then color, staying fresh with your color. This one's going to be fresher than my plein air piece. And I'm going to go back into my plein air piece eventually after I'm done with this one, just to see, just to change, because guess what? This is just still the underpainting. So um, this can be a lot of different paintings, my little
Right.
study. And so by me working on this one, and then I'll go back into this one, this can be another painting. I'll change it just a little bit, or maybe take more snow out of the mountains or put more snow in. I've got it all in all ways, but this is still another composition for me to change and go bigger in, that doesn't turn out to look like this too. So
Right.
this has a lot of value for me. I just didn't capture that color the way I wanted to. In some areas I did. I love the blue, and I love the colors I put in here. I was disappointed that I didn't hit it with the foreground, but I'm learning about it on the big one. So that's it. Composition, shapes, brush strokes, atmosphere, middle ground, and color. And so the color is um, going to be fun in this one by the time I'm done. And I've got a lot more work to do in it, but I'm excited about it. And so,
I'm excited too. It's a beautiful painting.
oh, well,
Even when
thank
it's not
you.
finished, it's gorgeous.
No, it's got a ways to go. And I've got to let it dry too before I can
Yeah.
go and glaze away some of make some of the mountains sort of fade in a little bit more to the sky, but it's got to be totally dry before I can do that.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to give Cindy a quick break. Stick around. We've got a Q&A coming up. Cindy, go get a drink, take a bathroom break if you need to. We're going to be back to you in just a minute.
Okay.
Before we get to our Q&A and some more giveaways, I want to talk a little bit about our upcoming event, Plein Live. So some of you might know that during COVID, all of our in-person events got canceled. And so we, like the rest of the world, pivoted to virtual events. Our very first virtual event was Plein Live, and we've added so many over the years. Pastel Live, Realism, Watercolor, you name it, we probably have one or have one coming up. When we finally got back to be able to go to in-person events, we were going to stop doing these virtuals. However, we had an overwhelming response from our audience that they didn't want them to go away. A lot of you guys can't travel or don't like to travel, and this online format really resonated with a lot of folks. So here we are 5 years later with our 6th annual Plein Live, and we are really excited. So do me a favor, comment in the chat whether you are a seasoned plein air painter or if you are a newbie like me. I can actually count on one hand, maybe two hands, the number of times I've plein air painted. Most recently, actually last Friday. I prefer to paint in the studio, like I said, where I can control everything. I like to, I don't know, I've got to figure out how to turn off that control button that's in me. That's my brain's just like, got to control everything. And like we talked about, photos lie, they don't capture the shadows right. They don't capture the light right. They just can't create the beautiful scene that is in front of you. And the first time I plein air painted, it was absolutely awful. I mean, it looked like a kid had taken some Crayola crayons and drawn this painting. There were no value shifts. It was terrible. And the big change for me came, my light bulb moment was plein air convention 3 years ago in Denver. I went to one of our paint outs. It was in El Dorado Canyon. And I quickly, masked in this blob. And this faculty artist came up to me and she just very nicely said, "Would you like some help? Can I give you some pointers?" Yes. So she proceeded to critique my painting and talk to me about values and shadows and how the light changes. And it really helped. My second painting wasn't much better, but it was still helpful for her to come over and talk to me. And it was very encouraging. And a few weeks later, I was painting in my studio. I was struggling with something and I can't remember what it was. And suddenly I remembered what she had said to me. And so I quickly did it and fixed it. And I was amazed, not only at the outcome of the painting, because it was actually a pretty good painting, but also because I realized that if you actually put into regular practice what you're learning, you can improve much quicker. And I know you guys are probably thinking, duh, Carrie, that's no brainer. But I was still a beginner. And so having that realization that, yeah, if you actually practice regularly, the new things that you're learning, you can improve much, much quicker. And that's why I love these virtual events too, because you not only get to watch 20 different people and how they approach their painting, you also get to learn how they problem solve as they're talking through everything. Or maybe they share a nugget of information that resonates with you. And, it's something you've been struggling with for years. We say in marketing that, you can improve in 3 days. We're not saying you can master in 3 days, because you cannot. It takes years to master this. But what we mean by that, and like what I've learned firsthand, is that by putting into practice these things that you're learning, you do improve much faster versus trudging along on your own, like I have been. And as an example, I was recently working on this painting in gouache, which is new to me. And I started it over 3 times because it didn't look right. I knew there was something not right about it, but I didn't know what it was. And so I took the pictures of each one and I sent it to an artist friend. And she very kindly said, "You don't know what you're doing. You're making the same mistake over and over again." And I mean, she was right. They looked different enough, but it was still the same mistake over and over, just in a different way. And she goes, "Here's what you need to do." And she was right. Like I thought I understood it. I knew the theory and everything, but it wasn't clicking for some reason. And that's another reason that these events are great, because our faculty they're so knowledgeable, but not just that, they are so giving and generous with that knowledge. Like Cindy today, like they're so willing to answer your questions, and it's not just watching them, paint on a screen. You can either paint along, or you're listening to them go through their thought process as they're painting, and then answer questions in real time when you're like, "Hey, why did you do that?" Or, "Well, what would you do here?" And so they're there for you. And I just think that's great. And we do have some of our regular attendees that come to all of our events in the chat. So hi, guys. But for those of you that have never attended one, I did want to share a little bit about what you can expect. Just, to give you guys an idea of what's going to be coming up. But so Plein Air Live is coming up November 6th through the 8th. We've got Essentials Days on November 5th. And it's a 4-day online event. So Essentials Day is day 1, and that's completely optional. We go through some of the more basic things, but it's a nice refresher for those 2 that are very seasoned. And then days 2 through 3, are jam-packed with demos from, over 20 artists. They're so, so great. And it's nearly 30 hours of, inspiration, instruction, and fun. And as I mentioned, the artists are available for you to talk in real time if you have a question. We've got a couple of pre-event seminars that we do. I don't know about you guys, but I love getting to talk about art materials. And so we've got a few vendors who will do those. We also have some optional breakout rooms. If you can have a chance to go meet other attendees from around the world, chat with them. We've had people meet in these groups and then go painting in real life and become friends. So it's really great. We've got a virtual vendor hall where you can shop, for your favorite art supplies with different vendors. And we end each day with a paint along cocktail hour where we all get on Zoom and we chat about the day, what we learned, what was so great about it. And then we put into practice those things that we're learning by painting along to the same image together, which is always really great. And we also send out the materials lists ahead of time. That way you guys can, prepare everything, get what you need so you can paint along if you'd like, or you can take notes and paint along with the replays later. I personally have tried twice to paint along with Pastel Live, which is my favorite medium, and it is not easy. Watching and painting along later is definitely more my speed, but we have people who paint along with every single demo. They post them throughout the day. So whatever, it's dealer's choice, whatever you guys want to do and whatever works best for you. We have curated a super awesome list of faculty to learn from. I'm really excited to learn from some of these people. I'm going to go through these really fast for you guys. So we've got Cindy Barron, of course. We've got Greg Barnes, pastel artist, Carla Bosch, who's doing acrylic. We've got Kyle Buckland, Tom Christopher, Suma CM, Steve Curry, Bill Davidson, Rick J. Delante, Justin Donaldson, Ulrich Gleiter, Scott Hamill, Albert Handel, Kathleen Hudson, Alex Kelly, Melanie Barish-Levitt, Kyle Ma, Kevin McPherson, Mark Mahaffey, Cami Mendlick, Judd Mercer, Lisa Mozini McDill, Keiko Tanabe, Jill Stephanie Wagner, Matt White, and Hong Yong Song. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So we offer 3 ticket options. So we've got General, Premier, and VIP. The difference is your length of replays. So General comes with 14 days of replays. Premier is 60 days of replay access, and VIP is 365 days. And like I said, Essentials Day is an optional one, so that's an extra ticket price. So if you were to buy a ticket and a ticket to Essentials Day, full price, if you decide to wait till the very last minute for those procrastinators, this is the full price that you would pay for those. And on the site right now, this is what you would be paying. So if anybody goes there today, this is what you're going to be paying: $5.94, $6.94, $12.94. And because you guys are spending your time with us here today for this webinar, we are giving you a webinar only price, which is the best price you're going to get. And that is $397, $497, and $457. That is not correct. That's actually $1097. Sorry about that. You are paying for the price of a general ticket, but you are also going to get Essentials Day included. So these prices include your ticket to the main event as well as to Essentials, except for VIP, where I put $457 instead of $1097. So I apologize. That'll be correct on the website. But just a great opportunity for you guys to get to see all of the different options available to you from all of these different artists. And if you sign up in the next hour, we do have some bonus videos for you. We've got John Potocznik, Lori Putnam, Judd Mercer, Steve Browning, Aline Ordman, Susan Blackwood, Dan Marshall, Sharon Bamber, and all of those videos in themselves are worth over $1,000. So that's a great value in general. And all of our virtual events come with a money back guarantee. If you watch the first day and you are thinking this is just not for me, not what I thought it was going to be, just reach out to our customer support and they are going to refund you your money. We also have some payment options available if you want to do a payment plan. We're going to drop that link in the chats. And I just wanted to, mention a couple of other things. If this is not in your budget, please don't do it. We are not, we're not just out here to get your money. We don't want you to stretch beyond your means. Definitely don't. We've got a lot of other resources for you if this isn't something for you. I personally am someone, I don't like spending money on myself. I feel selfish when I do it. So I hesitated to start, going to workshops and things like that because they are expensive. And it's a big investment. And I knew muddling along on my own wasn't going to work, but I still couldn't quite pull that trigger. My husband was actually the one who did it for me and bought my first workshop. And I've learned so much over those 3 years since taking that first workshop and going to so many pastel lives and plein air lives and virtual events. And I actually now kind of feel like I am a real artist. I feel like I can actually say that and not feel like I'm an imposter. But for me personally, I've experienced a lot of real growth going to these events and being able to watch them. And I know a lot of people who've attended these events feel the same way. So Plein Air Live is for you if you're really serious about investing in yourself and growing in your plein air painting. And like I said, these events are a great first step because you get access to 20 different artists. So you get to watch and find out, which artists really, whose approach you really like, or who's a great instructor, or I like, their style. I want to kind of learn how they're doing things. It's just a great way to get that introduction. And then you can dive deeper into classes and workshops and things with those particular people. And then I do have some thoughts that I wanted to share from some of our previous attendees, just to kind of give you an idea of how they felt about it. Tracy said, plein air live is the most informative event I have experienced in many years of plein air painting. Wendy says, this inspired and refreshed. Plein air live reminded me to be brave and continue to learn and challenge myself. It's offered so many facets of awesomeness and a great community, demos, classes on the fundamentals and group paintouts. I will definitely sign up again. And then we had Val. So inspiring, has taught me so much in 4 days. To go all over the world with professionals and to hear their techniques is such an opportunity not available before. I hope you do continue this in the future. This is quite an outreach artist. This is quite an outreach to artists all over the world. So lots of people have really benefited from this. So if, like I said, if growing in your plein air painting is something you really want to do, I definitely encourage you to check this out. Like I said, we're going to drop that link in the chat. We're going to give you about 5 minutes to check it out, to sign up. And then we are going to come right back here with Cindy, and we are going to answer some of your questions that you guys have had. So just go ahead and take a look at the link we've dropped in the chat, and I will see you guys back here in 5 minutes. Welcome back. I hope you guys had a chance to sign up. We did have some questions. So before I bring Cindy back in, discount is if you want to get those bonus videos, it's in the next hour. And if you've already signed up for Planner Live, you will still get those bonus videos. And then if you don't sign up in the next hour, if you want some time to think on it, Friday is when that expires. So you'll have until then to kind of think on some things. And we do not have the full agenda yet. We're still waiting on a couple things. So we will have that. I'll try to actually have our agenda, see if we can get that up before Friday so you guys know who's Essentials Day and who is regular event. But let's go ahead and bring back Cindy. Cindy, welcome back, Cindy. So we've got quite a few questions for you. So we'll try to get through these to respect your time. The first question that we have is, are there any specific questions you ask yourself when you are trying to study a scene?
Trying to study a scene, the thing I ask myself a lot is what's the most important part of that scene? What can I say about this scene? Um, Especially outdoors, playing or painting. What can I say about this scene and be as simple as I can outdoors and yet know it can be a studio painting also. So I always have to ask myself what's important about this painting because the landscape is scary. There's a lot of info. And therefore, I always ask myself, what is the most important thing that I need to say about this painting? So that's all the time.
And so so you just touched on landscape is very scary because there's a lot to include. How do you simplify? How do you simplify that into, okay, so just by thinking this is what the star is, so you just start with that and then build around it?
Um, yes. So I talked a lot about I like middle grounds. And
Right.
so when I see a middle ground, then I look what's in the foreground and then I look what's in the background. Um, if it's going to be about the mountains, I can't make it too complicated elsewhere. I have to simplify. If it's going to be about the foreground or a road in the foreground, it can't be over complicated elsewhere if you're focusing on the road in the foreground or the crashing wave. Sometimes too much info it becomes a hyper painting, and it's a fine line you have to walk. So yes, it's about the star and what are the little planets around it, which one's going to shine to help the star and which one's going to fade off to still help the star. So, you can't have two stars of the show. It can be about the whole scene, but still there's something. Is it about the atmosphere or is it about the road or is it about the mountains or is it about the wave? So you have to clue in to what you want to say about this painting first off.
Right. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so next is, and this one is very specific to you because you've used this word a couple times. Any recommendations on how not to be a putz?
If I could tell you how not to be a putz, I wouldn't be a putz. I know how to putz, so it's a fine art for me. So um, that's I will give you a good clue. Hold on, I've got a good one here. It's called an ugly brush. It was once a point. It was once, I think you can see it. It was once a
Yeah.
pointy brush. And I mutilated it to make me become more painterly and not putz too much. I can still putz. That's it, it's engraved. I was born that way. But this was a beautiful brush. If I showed you my brushes, this was once a flat.
Oh my goodness.
So these are just little techniques I've used to figure out how to help me in a painting. So brushes, and I'll be a putz till the end of time.
Okay, so a couple things about your palette. What mediums do you prefer to mix your oil painting?
I don't. I stick right with the Gamsol. It's a Gamblin product, and the reason why I like it, it's friendly to this in the studio. It's
Mhm.
friendly in the field. I call it, if you in the oils, if you're going to paint with something, I would highly recommend it. No, I don't have sponsors, and I'm not, it's not because, it's because I've tried some other mediums, and I have to tell you, there's a health risk with some of
Mhm.
the mediums. And so I tell everybody, I can thin my paints out with Gamsaw, I can clean my brushes with Gamsaw. So I stick with that. There's a medium I do like when a painting is totally dry and I still find it healthy. It's called Galkit Light or Galkit.
Mhm.
And I won't spell it because you spell it for me. And it's a gambling product.
Yeah.
And I will glaze my whole painting with it, and it brings out all the colors and the flatness and the shines. It brings it all together to show you what it will look like when it's varnished. And then I can go over certain areas with that. That's the only medium I use, and that's not until the end.
Oh, interesting. That's good to know. Do you use titanium white or zinc white? And do you
I
use black?
titanium white, and yes, I use black. I do not buy my greens. I make my greens.
Oh, okay.
And I make it with two different ways. So the workshop I just taught, we just had I had a color theory class with them on how I figured out my color theory in my head. And everybody's got to do it to their own way they interpret color. And so I use black, I use a Mars black, and in my watercolors, I use an ivory black. Don't ask me why. It just works better for me in the watercolors. But in the oils, I use a Mars black. And there's another black that when I was in New York City, I went to the Vasari store and I'm liking it. It's called Night Black. And if you order a Vasari color, try that Night Black. It's really nice. So I use three different yellows to mix my greens in with the black, or I use ultramarine with the yellow and maybe a little bit of red. So I had a color theory class on making my greens and making my grays.
Oh,
So, and black, I make my grays with black and white, and I can cool it up or warm it up. I do not like grays in a tube. I don't like greens in a tube. There's one green I do like, cadmium green, I think it is, because I mix that with alizarin. It makes a wonderful raw sienna. But I find, because my grays are in my paintings, if I make my greens with my grays or my blacks, everything harmonizes. So
right.
it's just my little color theory in my head.
So that goes into the next question of do you use a limited palette especially when you're out in the field? So you're mixing everything together.
When I'm out in the field, I've got big puddles of gray that I made, and I have big puddles of green that I make, and I line them up. I make big puddles, so it's not gone after the first painting. So I can still use it. Maybe three paintings down the road, or however many I can get in. So I mix them.
Okay. I think that's very helpful because like you said, with color theory and especially with color harmony, like making sure everything reads together, not having too many different colors in a painting is definitely going to benefit you.
For my brain, it works, and you'll find you're going to harmonize your paintings better if you keep in the same palette. Keep with
Yeah.
the same palette.
So how do you keep your colors fresh? You mentioned making sure your colors are fresh. How do you do that?
Um, on in the studio or plein air,
Either one.
everything looks really bad right now, but no, they stay. It's not too hard to keep them fresh. It's the colors I use. I like the Richardson paints, and I like the Gamblin paints, and I like the Vasari paints, and I find those paints um, uh, stay very fresh. They stay very buttery. You'll like Richardson. Yeah, I've got a few favorite colors here, and but I like them all. I'm experimenting with a few other colors only because I think it helps you grow.
Yeah.
Um, but now they stay pretty fresh. You mean like on the palette or on my canvas?
Well, both. Talk about canvas.
They stay pretty fresh, And it's also because of my surface that I work on. And they stay pretty fresh. My color palette that I use does not muddy itself. It doesn't get muddy. So
Mhm.
all these colors are, I call it like kids on a playground. They play well together.
Oh,
And
nice.
so the paint and the palettes that, yeah, that I have chosen, they all play well together. So they don't become muddy. And I think it's because, yeah, it is a limited palette, and I'm working with black is scary. I mean, people, it can be so strong in a painting.
Mhm.
You got to learn the recipe. Adding I have three different yellows, and I know which yellow will vibrate the black into a painting, but it's fresh. It keeps it fresh. And the same
Mhm.
thing with blues. And I don't have the only earthy color I have on my palette is transparent red oxide. And I love that one because it plays well together. And that's part of my underpainting down in this corner. So my palette, they all play well together.
Yeah. I think that's really good. So when I was talking about how I kept making the same mistake over and over again, it's because I didn't know how to mix grays. Like I kept trying to make a warm gray, but it kept being cool. And so the advice she gave me was you need to mix color. You need to figure out which colors go together to make a warm gray, which one goes together to make a cool gray. So I think that's really great, is understanding how these all play together, because then color relativity also comes into this too. Like it looks like one thing on your palette, but then you put it on the canvas next to something else and it changes. So
Right.
really understanding color theory and how all of these things work together is really important.
It is. Now I can make a warm gray with the black and the white. I may add a little bit of ultramarine in it to spice it up a little, or give it a nice richness. And then if you add a little bit of alizarin and just a tad of Shiva orange, you can make that beautiful warm gray. It's a recipe, but
Yeah,
guess what? All those colors are still in my painting. So that's how I harmonize my
right.
painting, because I know my gray is in here, and my gray is in the greens, and my gray is somewhere else. And the same thing with my blues. I know all my colors. This one has alizarin in it. I know it's in every step here. So that harmonizes the painting.
Yeah.
I had to do my own little color theory thing because color was kicking my butt,
That's how I
especially in the
feel right
kids.
now.
And I was like, all right, just let me learn on my own. And that's what I did. And we all see color different. I see
Mhm.
color different than you. So you gotta spend the time and learn your own little theory.
And that's when especially when I'm feeling like I just don't want to go paint or I'm just in a rut. That's what I started doing with gouache is I'm just going to start mixing color and just I have a little notebook and I just start making
Love
swatches of
gouache.
colors so that we can kind of figure out, okay, this is what these three do together, or this makes a really great purple. This one makes a not so much great purple. So yeah, I think that's really important. That's awesome. Okay, so we've got a couple more questions. What's your surface? A lot of people are asking that. So for your bigger painting, is that a canvas panel or a linen
This
panel?
is this is linen on whoops.
The
This
what?
is this is linen on gator board. And I have a very, 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 very good friend who's married to an extremely wonderful, talented artist that does my panels. And so I'll have to ask him if I'm allowed to say, but if anybody really wants to know, I can write them later and tell
Okay.
them. He does his work is
But
great.
you prefer linen over canvas.
I do. I like the linen. Mine is not the landscape linen texture. I'm sort of a happy medium. It's not portrait grade. It's not landscape grade. It's sort of somewhere in the medium, in the halfway point.
I just
I
learned
don't
something
know. I
new.
can't remember the number. All I know
I
is
didn't
deep
even
down,
know that they came in grades of portrait and
they
landscapes.
do. They do. The landscape is a wider weave and can give you. Now, see, I like to get detailed, so that
Mhm.
doesn't work for me. So and I basically have an art store here. I had to try all these different grades just to figure out what works for me. And you
Right?
got
I'm
you
the same
got to
way.
do that.
Yep. I keep trying new things and then go back to the same thing because I know I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So last one. So love to hear more about brush strokes, direction, size, paint thickness. So you talked about how in your plein air, you use smaller brush strokes, smaller brushes, and then going bigger, you use bigger palette knives, all that kind of stuff. Can you kind of talk a little bit about, is it changing directions? Is it a certain type of brush that helps? What's kind of your approach to that?
Um, yes, certain brushes help, and they're my ugly brushes that I destroy. I've got big ones, I cut into them. I've got um oh gosh, it's this was actually fabulous, and I scrubbed it on a brick to get what I
On a
needed.
brick.
Yeah, I got all techniques. Um, brush strokes. When I start out large, now in the field, I start my paintings out the same way I start my studio paintings out. I get all that color I see in the landscape, and then I do a process of elimination.
Mhm.
And so then I have Q-tips. I love Q-tips. And then I draw with my Q-tips and take off color to form the shape. I did the same thing on the large one. I go through a whole lot of Q-tips compared to a small one. But all my brush strokes start out like this, and I just get it on there and make my shapes, and then my brush strokes change. Now, in the beginning, this looked more like a watercolor because it's thin and
Mhm.
transparent, and I can draw. And if the composition isn't good, I can go right in and change it then instead of waiting till all that thick paint is on there to
Right.
change the composition. So I approach this as I'm approaching a watercolor, and I do the same thing with watercolors. I get rid of the white paper and I get rid of the white of the canvas. And then my brush strokes change. They become more deliberate and in certain, and I go right to the thickness of the paint. So there's a lot of thick paint on here. There's a lot of palette knife down there. So in the beginning, it's like a watercolor. In the end, I just go right to the pile of paint and right to the canvas. And I do a lot of mixing on my canvas. So you'll see a lot of different colors and values in here. So when I take um, for instance, okay, let me grab this. I'll take, and this is just a lot of paint. I just grab from piles, and then I'll just lay it on here. And so here's the other thing. I have, I can do this and not disturb the color that's underneath it already, and it's still
Mhm.
wet. Because I have a very, very light touch. So
Right.
I lightly just lay that thick paint on top of it, and it just builds texture and
Mhm.
richness without disturbing the color that's underneath. And it's all about I have a very light touch.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, because you can still see some of my transparent red oxide from underneath it, but then it becomes very thick. And this becomes there's a little palette knife going through here. And so as I'm coming to the next details part of it, then I get very thick with it and very deliberate with where the palette knife goes and the ugly brush marks go. So
Okay, and so you mentioned too about glazing and so helping create that atmosphere by glazing. Is there a certain color that you use or certain technique that you use to kind of get that kind of look? Is that your trade secret you can't share?
oh, no, I share. I share everything. I mean, if it, so this has to be totally, totally, totally done
Right.
or dry. And let me bring that art school live. I did a glazing of a bunch of barns and a field, and it's on art school live
We'll find it.
maybe a year or so ago. I can't remember. I did it for Eric, and this is totally dry. Then I take my Galkit or Galkit light, and I lightly go over the whole painting. Now, mind you, the whole painting is dry, and then what I do is I take Shiva Orange, which is in the Richieson Shiva series. I love the Shiva series, and I take Richieson Orange, and it's very diluted, and I just paint it through the whole painting and then wipe a lot of it off. But it sets it, what it does is it unsweetens the blues and harmonizes the whole painting, and it gives that wonderful atmosphere. You're gonna love Shiva Orange. You got to try it. Shiva Orange and these are the Richardson paints. Shiva Orange, Hansa Yellow Medium, Hansa Yellow, Transparent Red Oxide. I love all of those. I love their colors. So,
So this is a personal question because somebody told me I should try transparent red oxide. I'm not an oil painter, so I couldn't find it in gouache. What is the deal with transparent red oxide? Because people really like that.
you know what? For me, it represents the earth color. Represents dirt, but it's also transparent. It's also rich, and it plays well with other colors. It's a playground effect. It's a bunch of kids in the playground. This one plays well with everything. I can take my gray mixture and then put a little bit of that transparent red oxide in it, and it just makes a wonderful putty. It's like it will go in the mountains here, and it plays well with others. That's what it does. And you can
Interesting.
use it solo. It could be the only kid in the playground playing and having a good time. You can use it solo, or you can use it with other colors.
I love it. That's awesome. You can be solo. Okay, so final question. You are going to be on faculty for Planner Live coming up. Can you tease a little bit about what you are going to talk about?
I went to one
Without
of
giving
my
away the farm.
Yeah, I went to one of my favorite little coves here in Rhode Island. I go there a lot to paint because I can paint a bunch of sailboats in the water, or the little harbor there, or the little cove, or a little soft marsh. It's not too far from my house, and so I go there a lot to paint, so that's where I went to paint. It happened to be a very gray day painting, so I infused color into my gray. It was this was fun, and of course you got to do it quick, and I did it quick. But the also was low tide, so it's a little marsh scene with low tide and gray clouds in it.
Very cool. I'm excited to see that. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. I appreciate you spending your time today. I know you've been really busy, so thank you so much for sharing this. You
Yes.
had some wonderful information to share. We put that up on the, can't think of what that thing is called right now, the internet, the interwebs. We shared all those little tips there, so we got a lot of great information out of this. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I so appreciate it. And have fun painting, everybody.
Well, thank you, Cindy. And everybody hang in. We've still got some giveaways that we're going to bring in really quick. Let's see. So first giveaway, we actually have, it's from Cindy. It is her newest video, which is Harmonious. Nope, it's not Harmonious. It's Harmony in Nature. Let me see if I can pull that up really quick. Painting Harmony in Nature. And is that not a gorgeous painting? So we are going to give this video away. Comment nature in the chat if you want to win this video. And then I also need to grab my other giveaway so that you guys can see what we're going to be doing. So, okay. Oh, wow. This is going by really fast, really fast. We're going to go with Christy Bunn. Christy Bunn, you are the winner of Cindy's Harmony in Nature video. Congratulations. And let's take this back out. Okay, so next one that I have is some value specs. These are super handy because, and I should have taken these planner painting with me the other day, and I did not because I, didn't think I would need them. I had those values down, and turns out I did not. I really like these because, they have the vellum sheets that you can hold up, but I find that, holding brushes, or I've got hands covered in pastel. I really like these. Eric created these glasses so you can just keep them on your head, which is often what I do. I actually like using them for pastel when I organize my palette because colors don't tell you what they really are until you see them in black and white. So these are really handy. We're going to give a pair of these away, and that is going to go to, let's see, Terry Chancellor. Terry Chancellor, you are now the proud owner of a pair of value specs. So congratulations. Make sure to send us an email, winner@streamlinepublishing.com, so we can get you your prizes today. And our final ones, I have two more. We are going to upgrade. We've had several people sign up for Planner Live already, so we're going to upgrade a couple people. So let's see who we've got here. This first one is for a premiere ticket for Plein Air Live, and the winner is Lavon Elaine Comlos. Congratulations, you now have a premiere ticket to Plein Air Live. And we're also going to want someone to VIP status, which means you get 365 days of replays. And the winner of the VIP ticket is Carol Manley. Congratulations, Carol. Congratulations, everybody. And we did have a couple of other questions about bonus videos, the offer. So I'm just going to go through those really, really quickly for you guys, for anyone who needs it. So bonus videos were John Potocznik. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Lori Putnam. My keyboard has quit working. Judd Mercer, Steve Browning, Aline Ordman, Susan Blackwood, Dan Marshall, and Sharon Bamber. And those are if you sign up within the next hour. And it's actually, we're going to do it from when this ends. So from the time we stop to 1 hour, that is when you will get those bonus videos. And then there's still the money back guarantee. And you have until Friday to sign up if you want some more time to think about it. So be sure to check that out. And yeah, thank you guys all so much for joining us today. Thank you again to Cindy. This was such an informative talk with Cindy. I know I am so excited to go out and actually put some of these things into action. And it actually makes me want to start painting in oil, which that's the one medium I haven't touched yet. So I think I might need another studio in order to bring in oil. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and we will see you guys at Plein Air Live.